Okay, turn to page 18 in your chapter 3 packets, and we're going to go over part to whole ratios. Now, on page 18, the first problem says, no graphite was found in 4,500 pencils shipped to UMS. This was 2.5% of the total number of pencils received by UMS. How many pencils in total were in that order? So, for this, we are going to set up a proportion. We're going to set part to whole equal to part to whole. Now, for a percent proportion, the whole is always 100%. So, for the percent proportion, we always know the second ratio will have 100 on the bottom. This makes it easier for us to figure out where to put the 2.5%, because the whole is 100%, so the part percent is 2.5. Now, we just have to determine if the 4,500 pencils that did not have graphite were the whole order sent to UMS or part of the order. Now, this was only 2.5% of the pencils, so it is part. So we put 4,500 on the top and X on the bottom. Now, to solve this, we say 2.5x equals 450,000. We divide both sides by 2.5, and using our calculator, we get x equals 180,000 pencils. Okay, now let's look at number 2. Number 2 says a high jumper hit the bar 58 times last week. This means that he did not succeed in 29% of his jump attempts. How many attempts did he have last week? Well, again, this is a part to whole ratio. We know the 100 goes on the bottom, and he failed 29% of his attempts. So part of his attempts, 29%, that goes on the top. Now, the 58 represents the 29% of the times that he failed, and we need to know what was the total number of jumps that he made. Because when you hit the bar in high jumping, that means you fail. Okay, so I say 29x equals 5,800, divide by 29, divide by 29, x equals 200 jumps. Okay, now let's look at number 3. Number 3, how much tax will Bob pay on a stereo system that costs $1,885 if the tax is 5%? Again, fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. We know the 5% goes on top. Now, if the stereo system costs $1,885, that represents 100% of the cost of the stereo. We want to know what represents the 5%. So x goes in the top. So 100x equals 5 times 1885. And when we do the math, we find out that x equals $94.25. So 5% of 1885 is $94.25. Now, for number 4, Ria now earns $9.50 per hour. This is 125% of what she earned last year. What did she earn per hour last year? Now, this is an example of where the part is greater than the whole, because the whole is 100%. The whole is always 100%. But now she's making 125% of the whole of what she made last year. So the 950 represents the increase, the 125%. We want to know what it was before she had a 25% increase. So 125x equals 950. X equals $7.60 if we do the division. Okay, now let's look at number 5. Number 5 says, in a survey of 450 people, 74% admitted they hated Brussels sprouts. How many people in the survey did not like this vegetable? Again, fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. 100 is the whole, 74% is the part. We ask ourselves, does the 450 represent all the people or just the people who don't like Brussels sprouts? And it represents everyone, so it goes on the bottom. X goes on the top. If you do the math for this, your answer is 333. And by now, everybody should feel comfortable doing the cross product equation. 100 times x equals 450 times 74. And number 6 says, in a bin of 21,000 M&Ms, 6.5% are the color blue. How many M&Ms are blue? Fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. The part is 6.5%. The whole is 21,000, and we want to know what part is 6.5%. So this would be 100x equals 6.5 times 2100, and the answer is 1,365. Okay, now for number 7, it says Shay paid $8,400 in federal and state income taxes as a chemist. That was 28% of her income. So the $8,400 represented 28% of her income. We don't know what her income is, but her income is 100%. The taxes is 28%. We don't know what the whole income was, that's X, but we know $8,400 represents the 28%. So this times this equals this times this, and X equals 30,000. Now for number 8, the caterer estimates that 85% of the people at a banquet will request coffee. If the banquet has 340 guests, how many people are expected to request coffee? So again, fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. 85% represents the number of people who want coffee. We don't know how many people want coffee, but we know there's a total of 340 guests. So the total goes next to the 100. The X goes next to the 85. 100x equals 85 times 340. And we find that 289 people requested coffee.